There is a conversation that plays out in some version for almost every person who has ever decided to get serious about their finances. It usually starts around the first of the month, or maybe after a particularly painful look at a bank statement, or sometimes after a financial goal of vacation. A down payment, a debt payoff milestone quietly slips further into the future, because the money that was supposed to go toward it somehow disappeared into the month without a clear accounting of where exactly it went. The conversation goes something like this. I need to make a budget. And then a budget gets made. Categories get created. Numbers get assigned. The document looks reasonable and even optimistic. And then life happens. An unexpected expense appears. A social situation arises that the budget did not account for. A week of particularly stressful days produces spending that felt justified in the moment and impossible to argue with in retrospect. And by week 3 of the month, the budget has quietly been abandoned, not with a formal decision to stop, but with the gradual fade of something that stopped feeling relevant to actual daily life. And then the first of the next month arrives and the conversation starts again. I need to make a budget. This cycle is not a character flaw. It is not a discipline problem. It is the predictable result of using a budgeting system that is fundamentally misaligned with how money actually moves through a real human life. Most traditional budgets are built on averages, on idealized spending patterns, on categories that made sense when the budget was made, but that do not flex to absorb the genuine variability of real monthly expenses. They are static documents applied to dynamic situations. And the mismatch between the system and the reality is what produces the failure, not the person. The system. Zero-based budgeting is a different system. Not different in a cosmetic way. Different in its fundamental architecture, in the core principle that governs every decision made within it, and that makes it resistant to the failure modes that destroy conventional budgets. It is used by Fortune 500 companies to control costs with a level of precision that percentage-based budgeting cannot match. It is used by government agencies managing public funds. And in its personal finance adaptation, it is the system that has produced more successful budget outcomes for more people across more income levels than any other approach to managing money that has been developed. Today, I am going to teach you exactly how it works and exactly how to build one for yourself, starting today. Welcome to Klux One Finance. Before we get into the mechanics of zero-based budgeting, let us spend a few minutes understanding why the alternatives fail, because that understanding is what makes the logic of the zero-based approach so clear and so compelling once you see it. The most common budgeting approach most people try is the percentage budget. The most famous version is the 50-30-20 rule: 50% of income to needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings and debt. This framework is simple, intuitive, and almost completely useless for real-world application for most people. The fundamental problem with percentage budgets is that real life does not organize itself into clean percentage categories. Your rent is what your rent is. Your car payment is what your car payment is. Your student loan minimum is not negotiable to fit a percentage. The fixed costs of your life consume whatever percentage they consume, and trying to force them into a prescribed framework produces a budget that either does not add up to reality or requires you to live in a way that your actual life cannot support. The envelope method solves some of these problems by assigning cash to physical envelopes for each spending category, which creates genuine spending limits through the very concrete mechanism of running out of physical cash. But it requires carrying cash in an era where most spending happens digitally. It does not adapt easily to online purchases or automatic payments. And it creates the same category rigidity problem as percentage budgets when life produces expenses that do not fit neatly into the predetermined envelopes. Tracking-based approaches, apps that monitor your spending and report back on where your money went, are useful tools, but they are not budgets. Knowing where your money went is not the same as deciding where it is going before it goes there. Tracking is diagnosis. Budgeting is prescription. And the most powerful prescription is one that assigns a specific destination to every dollar before the month begins. Which brings us to zero-based budgeting and the core principle that makes everything else about it work. The principle is this: your income minus your expenses equals zero. Every single dollar that comes into your life in a given month gets assigned a specific job before the month begins. Rent, groceries, utilities, debt payments, savings, investing, entertainment, clothing, car maintenance, every dollar has a category it belongs to, a purpose it is serving, a destination it is heading toward. When you have assigned every dollar a job and the math works out to zero, meaning income minus all assigned expenses equals zero, you have a zero-based budget. No dollars are unaccounted for. No money is sitting in the checking account without a designation, which is exactly the condition that produces the unconscious spending that makes most people's money disappear without explanation. The reason this principle is transformative is that it forces a conversation with yourself about every dollar before it is spent rather than after. With a conventional approach, money arrives in your account and then gets spent on whatever arises until it is gone, with a vague hope that savings and debt payoff got their share somewhere in the flow. With zero-based budgeting, the spending decisions are made on paper or in an app before they happen in the real world. The month is planned. The dollars are deployed intentionally, and when something arises that was not in the plan, the budget requires you to make an active decision about where the money comes from. Which category gets reduced to make room for the unplanned expense, rather than simply absorbing the surprise unconsciously and dealing with the consequences later. Let us build a zero-based budget step by step so you can see exactly how this works in practice. Step 1 is calculating your real monthly income, not your salary. Your actual take-home income, what actually lands in your bank account after taxes, after retirement contributions, after health insurance premiums, and any other automatic deductions. If you are a salaried employee, this number is relatively predictable. If your income is variable freelance, hourly with fluctuating hours, commission-based, gig economy, use a conservative estimate based on your lowest recent monthly income rather than your average or your best month. Building a zero-based budget around your minimum realistic income and then treating any additional income as bonus allocation to savings or debt payoff is far more stable than building around an optimistic number that does not materialize every month. Step 2 is listing every single expense you have in a given month. And I mean every single one, not just the big obvious ones. Every subscription, every insurance premium, every estimated grocery spend, every tank of gas, every anticipated dining out expense, every coffee, every haircut, every birthday gift, every pet expense, every medical copay, every parking fee, every streaming service, every app subscription. Every dollar that is going to leave your possession this month needs to appear on the list. This step is where most people discover for the first time just how many expenses they are carrying that they had not fully registered. The streaming services alone often number 4 or 5 for people who have never audited them. The subscriptions that auto-renew without triggering a conscious decision add up to hundreds of dollars per month for many households. Getting them all on paper, in one place, where they can be seen as a collective total rather than as individual, invisible line items, is often a genuinely revelatory experience. Divide your expenses into 4 categories. Fixed essentials are expenses that are the same every month and are non-negotiable: rent or mortgage, minimum loan payments, insurance premiums, phone bill. Utilities with relatively stable amounts. Variable essentials are expenses that are necessary, but whose amount varies month to month: groceries, gas, medical expenses, household supplies. Fixed discretionary are non-essential expenses that are consistent: streaming subscriptions, gym membership, recurring entertainment. Variable discretionary are non-essential expenses that fluctuate: dining out, clothing, entertainment, hobbies, gifts. This categorization is important because it tells you where your negotiating room is. Fixed essentials are largely immovable in the short term. Variable essentials have some flexibility in amount. Discretionary categories are where the most budget adjustment capacity lives when you need to redirect money toward a financial goal or absorb an unexpected expense. Step 3 is assigning every dollar a job. And this is the step that distinguishes zero-based budgeting from every other approach. You take your total monthly income and you begin assigning it to your expense categories, starting with the fixed essentials and working your way through to the discretionary categories. As you assign dollars, your available income decreases. You continue until every dollar has been assigned to a category and the math reaches zero. If you finish assigning expenses and you still have unassigned income, you have not finished the budget. Those remaining dollars need to get assigned to savings, to debt payoff, to an investment account, to a sinking fund for a future expense, somewhere specific with a specific purpose. Leaving dollars unassigned is what creates the mysterious disappearing money phenomenon that makes people feel like they have nothing to show for their income at the end of the month. Unassigned dollars get spent. Assigned dollars go where they are directed. The zero-based budget eliminates the unassigned dollar problem at the source. If you finish assigning expenses and the math produces a negative number, meaning your planned expenses exceed your income, you have a different problem to solve, and the budget has just told you something critically important. You cannot spend more than you earn without going into debt. The budget is showing you the gap. Now you have two options: reduce expenses in the discretionary categories until the math works, or increase income until the math works, or some combination of both. This conversation with yourself, forced by the zero-based structure, is exactly the kind of financial clarity that most people avoid until a crisis forces it. The zero-based budget surfaces the reality so you can address it deliberately rather than discovering it accidentally through an empty bank account or a declined card. The savings categories in your zero-based budget deserve specific attention, because this is where the pay-yourself-first principle integrates with the zero-based system to produce its most powerful results. Savings is not what is left over after everything else is assigned. Savings is the first line item assigned after the fixed essentials. Your emergency fund contribution, your retirement account contribution, your specific savings goal contributions, these all get assigned their dollars at the top of the discretionary portion of the budget before any spending categories receive their allocation. This sequencing ensures that your savings goals are funded every month before discretionary spending has a chance to claim those dollars. Step 4 is tracking and adjusting in real time, and this is where the zero-based budget becomes a living document rather than a static one-time exercise. Throughout the month, as actual spending occurs in each category, you track it against the budgeted amount for that category. When you spend money on groceries, you record it against the grocery budget. When you pay for dining out, you record it against the dining budget. When you fill the gas tank, it goes against the transportation category. This tracking serves two essential functions. First, it keeps you continuously aware of how much remains in each category, which prevents the unconscious overspending that tanks conventional budgets. When you know your dining budget has $40 remaining for the next 2 weeks, you make different decisions at the restaurant than when you have only a vague sense that you have been eating out a lot this month. Concrete remaining amounts produce more deliberate spending decisions than vague impressions. Second, tracking in real time allows you to make adjustments when categories are running over budget before the damage is done. If your grocery spending is ahead of pace in week 2, you can adjust shop more carefully for the rest of the month, shift some money from a discretionary category to cover the overage, or consciously decide to accept the overage and reduce another category proportionally. The key is that the adjustment is a deliberate decision rather than a surprise discovery at the end of the month. Start the budget this month, build the categories, assign the dollars, track the spending, make the adjustments, and repeat it next month. The first month is the hardest because the categories are new and the system is unfamiliar. By month 3, it starts to feel natural. By month 6, it is the way you think about money. And the financial outcomes that follow from that shift in how you think about money, the savings that accumulate, the debt that falls, the goals that stop feeling abstract and start feeling inevitable, are the real product of the zero-based budget, long after the spreadsheet has become a background habit of your financial life. Subscribe to CluxOne Finance if you have not already. Hit the bell notification. Share this video with someone who needs a budgeting system that actually works. And I will see you in the next one.